I'd like to welcome everybody to the Archives and History Library. And it's been a really nice speaker series we've had this year, and we thank you very, very much for coming. This reminds me of a family and friends reunion. Every time the speakers show up, you can tell they're family and friends, and that's really great when we see that. But I'd like to turn this over to Anthony Kinzer. Thank you very much for coming.
As Randy has said, I also want to thank everyone for coming out this season. We've had 3 phenomenal guests, 3 fantastic people who have given their personal histories, their life story, beginning with Miss Mary Pudgy Booker. We all know her. And Ella Jean Martin. She does a hell of a job down at the barbershop on Pittsburgh Street. Everybody knows she's been cutting hair for 54 years. And she has her own way of talking. But everybody understands her. Last month, Reverend Dr. Paul Easley told one heck of a story. Let's say the other word. He was a fantastic guy. But Miss Chloe, everyone knows Miss Chloe. If you haven't eaten at a restaurant, you're missing something. So I'm saying you have another restaurant from now on. But she may cook her at her house if you need some chicken. But I've been doing this close since about 10 years now. And through the nonprofit organization, the West Virginia Center for African American Art and Culture, we, on behalf of Ms. Chloe, want to continue with this block speaker series. And into next year, 2018, and 2019, and 2020, we'll see an expansion of the block speaker series because the block, as I said, not only represents a specific place in Charleston, the stories, the lives that these people have led any part of West Virginia or even outside of West Virginia. The upbringing, the neighborhood, their school, everything about these people is inspiring. We want to continue these stories and bring in the younger generation of people to understand what you have experienced and what got you to where you are now. And I want to say again, we are a nonprofit organization. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible contribution, we truly appreciate that. It is a tax write-off to the IRS, and we can continue what we're doing into the next 5 years or more. There's no introduction necessary for Ms. Chloe. We all know she is. We all know what she's done. And she can continue to do it with our help, our encouragement, and our intestinal fortitude to help her continue doing what she's doing. I want to say thank you, Ms. Chloe, for being a part of our nonprofit organization. I want to thank you for assisting me and our organization to achieve what we have achieved. And I want to thank you for being a part of our Block Speaker Series. And share your life with this audience that they can continue the lifelong stories that we share with each and every one of us.
Thank you, Mr. Kinzer. Can you hear me? Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
And all I can say is, wow. I'm happy. I'm not a speaker. I never have been. In school, I wasn't able to ever speak in front of a group. I ran for Miss Garnet, went out on the stage and ran off. And I was always mad at myself because I thought I might have won. I don't know. And I hope you all will enjoy this evening. You may hear some repetition because all of us came from the same roots in this group. I got family, neighbors, friends, and everybody else here under the sun. And a lot of things have been said, but it wasn't my way. So since Mr. Kinsley's given me the nerve to get up here and try to do it, I'm going to give it to you just as I know and only how I know it. And I'm so happy you all are here this evening. And I have extended family here to support me. And I'm a nervous wreck, but you'll never know. First of all, it'll be like I'm going to go in phases. I may go back to something I've said, but put an addition to it because I've got to do this because so much of it's already been said and lived by most of us here. Now, in 1935, I had a mom and dad, and they had come here from Pittsburgh, but they were local people from West Virginia. And my mom was expecting a baby, and complications had set in, and she was under the care of old Dr. Jones, our oldest black doctor in the city at that time. And he had a friend who had a hospital on Moore Street, whose name was Dr. Macmillan. So in that acquaintance, which was rare because they didn't go to the hospital to have babies back in those days, as one of our former speakers has told us, that her family became a qualified midwife later in years. But my mom ended up in the hospital due to the doctors, we must say. Well, guess who they had? Me. And I was born in Macmillan Hospital, January the 26th, 1935. And Dr. Macmillan said he'd never seen such a happy couple in their life. And I was a squawker. He said I was the loudest thing he'd ever heard. But I never talked much after that, evidently. Well, everything went well. And they told my dad he had to name me. I was 3 days old and didn't have a name. And they don't to this day, nor do I, know where he got my name from. But that was my name. Many years later, I worked at One Valley Bank. And Dr. Macmillan was a customer. And he came in there one day, and I didn't know the gentleman. He was staring at my nameplate. And he walked away. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, may I help you?" But he didn't answer me. So he continued to leave, and he came back in a few minutes with his son. Well, this guy I knew at the bank because he'd been there for a long time was Tom Macmillan, Dr. Macmillan's son. And he said, "Chlorine, my dad wants to speak to you about a matter." And I said, "Okay." His father spoke up and said, "Can you take a break?" I said, "I guess I have to." So I did. And he said, "You know what, young lady? I know you." I said, "How do you know me?" He said, "I delivered you. I'm Dr. Macmillan." He said, "And I remember your mom and dad and how happy they were to have you." And he said, "I couldn't believe it, and I know no one else had a name like this, and where your dad got it, I don't know." And he said, he asked me about my life and the things I had done and all about my mom and dad, and the occurrence and things that happened after being born. He continued to come to see me very often at the bank, and Tom couldn't believe that he remembered this baby. But what it was in those days, there weren't many of us born in a hospital. But he said they were happy to have me, and I should know that. And I did. Well, we went on to many things, and they went back to Pittsburgh. And I noticed my mom she would travel a lot, but she would have me with her, and she always rode the bus at night. And anytime we left that house, I looked up to see if the moon was out, because I figured that's my protection. I'm taking the moon with me if I got to go with this woman one more time on this Greyhound bus. So we rode the bus and came to my grandmother's. We got there, and if the moon was still out, I thanked the moon for being there till we arrived, because I felt it was protection, you know. So my mom continued to travel back and forth, but we didn't question anything. I was a baby. And so she got pregnant with another baby when I was 4 years old. We still rode the bus back and forth from Pittsburgh here. She didn't like the city, but she never went anywhere while she was in the city. And as to why she had to leave, I don't know, but she did. The last trip, we never went back again. So I grew up in the East End of Charleston with my grandmother, an uncle, and an auntie. And we remained there all of my life. And they had come here from Hinton and Union, West Virginia, many years ago, and that's where they lived all their life. Well, I stayed there, and we grew up somewhat and started the school, which was Boyd Elementary, Junior High. And I was in the 3rd grade. So my mom took me to school. And my mom was really a pretty lady, I thought. And she met the principal. And they began to talk, and she knew him, and they were schoolmates. And she forgot all about me. So finally the secretary came over and said, well, we got to get you to a room. And my mom never responded. She was talking to Mr. Charles Preston, right, Barbara Ann, the principal of Boyd Elementary. And I wanted to jerk her by her skirt tail to tell her, come on, or take me out of this school. So finally the secretary went and got a chow to come and take me down to the classroom. And this tall, skinny child came down the hall, just grinning. And it was Robert Easley. And she said, take Chlorine down to Miss Gordon's room. So off down, he took me by the hand, and we went down the hall and went to Miss Gordon's room. And she was up front speaking to the class. And I thought, oh, Lord, that's the meanest looking lady I've ever seen in my life. And she turned around and said, what do you want? I said, to be in school. She said, sit down. I did. She said, what's your name? I don't remember saying one word. So she continued to carry on the class, but she kept me after school because she had to find out who I was. My mom was still down in the office with Mr. Preston. Now, if any of you all saw a picture of Mr. Preston, Charles Preston was a handsome man. He was the brother of the funeral home Mr. Preston, and they were brothers. And I just thought, wow, my mom forgot me. So I stayed in the 3rd grade, passed, Lord Jesus. And we had a good time. And Miss Gordon became very fond of me, but I made her like me because I began to tell her, I think you're so nice, Miss Gordon, because I was afraid to say anything else, you know. But she was a good teacher, and all our teachers were. And Robert Easy's brother was here the other month. That's why I say you're going to hear some repetition, because we all were around each other our whole lives. His brother was here, and he reminded me of going down the hall to Miss Gordon's room, because Rob told him. And Rob and I remained friends for life. That's the way it's been for most of us here. Well, I went on through Boyd, and I loved school. And we had a lot of things going on. They had musicals. We had good ball teams, outstanding guys on the teams. It was just a good time. So I'm not a speaker, and I wasn't a talker, but they had a contest for Miss Boyd. And so I didn't speak. I just told them I would do it. But I wasn't Miss Boyd. Juanita Brown became Miss Boyd, and I was her first attendant, because we was poor. And I didn't get to have payola, but Juanita had a daddy could help her get anything she needed. But I won by some kind of points, I don't know. And we had so much fun, and she and I became friends. Well, we had all kinds of things happening at Boyd. We had winning ball teams, musicals. They had beautiful ladies teaching music. They had choirs. We had everything. The teachers saw that we were taught and taken care of, and they watched every move we made to help us grow up particularly right. And they did pretty good, I think. I always had fun in school, never missed a day. I had to be really sick to miss school. Well, got through Boyd, and I went on to Garnet High School. We met new friends there from every school you could imagine, and I thought that was the most thrilling thing in the world because there were kids from everywhere. We only had the one high school, and we made lasting relationships with them as well, and it was always fun to be there. The band was good. They went out of state. Barbara Ann knows. Were you in the band? But anyway, our band won contests to go to Philadelphia and different places. The community would raise money to help with the trip, and they got to ride the train and go to be in city parades like Philadelphia and different places. And we had a magnificent band and a dynamite football team and a basketball team as well. And some of y'all may have played ball up in here, I don't know. But it was always something going on. We had a chorus. We had all kinds of drama. We had a teacher who taught Shakespeare, costumes, everything was there. It was great. It was a school, and if you didn't learn anything in there, that was your fault. Because they tried hard to make sure you learned what they tried to teach. And you were accepted by the teachers, and they claimed you. And it was a wonderful feeling. Well, we went on through high school, and I decided I was not going to college. I wanted to work and make money. And my dad never forgave me to this day, but that's what I wanted to do. But he was very disappointed. Well, I ended up working down the school in the registrar's office, and I felt a part of the school then because I registered so many people that I knew to go to college and see that they were going and made sure everything was all right for them. And that was a wonderful job, and I enjoyed it very much because it gave me a chance to be connected with the school. So for many years I stayed there. Then I decided I would do something else. Well, I took a leave, and I went to One Valley Bank, only part-time, and I ended up staying there and retired from there. Well, then I began to get in business there for a while. My husband decided we was going in business. Well, before I went to work, I had a little canteen in Rand, West Virginia, where no one could come but the good children. And it lasted many years, and they called it the Purple Pit. And the kids weren't in the street hanging on the corners. They were in my little place dancing and laughing. We had a pinball machine, a bowling machine, and we was getting ready to get pool tables. And we rented from some of my classmates' father, which was the Wright family. And he was there to protect me because my husband was working, and we were open for business every day. And then I had my children, and they were there with me. They had to sit in the corner and play. And that was my first venture in business. And I didn't go very far in that for a while because I decided this is hard work. Well, I went on and got me another job. And by golly, I ended up in a restaurant because my husband was a Legionnaire at Post 57 in Charleston, West Virginia, and he opened up the restaurant in the American Legion. Well, guess who worked there? Okay. And that was a long-time job, and we had a wonderful time and kept the post alive and running for quite a while. And things were really good back then. And our post was one of the oldest in the state. And it was a nice place to be at that time. Things were different than the way they are now. Well, we had continued to go on into business, and we both were working. And he worked for the gas company, and I was still at the bank. And we ran it for a long time. Then he passed. Well, I didn't do anything for a while, but just continued working the one job. So later on down the line, I met a friend. We became acquainted, and he wanted to go in business. And I don't know why I could never say, no, I'm not going back in business. It was like I couldn't say it. So we went, and we had Shawnee Park. And we were the first people, such as us, to have a state building like Shawnee Park is. Well, we got it on the premise that it was going to be a land grant for West Virginia State College. We could stay there as long as that took over. And they gave us a lot of help. Dunbar did. And then things began to get bad in the public, and it affected us a little bit. And we soon came out, but we had a tremendous time down there. And we had a wonderful party for Culpeper and Moss. And it was on the ball. And somebody broke in our office and stole all our photos and our pictures and cameras. And I'd rather they had taken the money than that, because that was something we couldn't replace. Nobody believed that this guy I'm with is Culpeper. Now, well, we had 2 sections in the Shawnee Park. Randy never came downstairs. He mingled upstairs on the 2nd floor. But Culpeper said, come on, Miss Chloe, we're going downstairs. So we walked through the place. I kept telling them, this is Culpeper. They said, Miss Chloe, that's not Culpeper. I said, it is, this is Culpeper. When they realized it was Culpeper, I ended up pinned to the wall and screaming for help, and nobody could hear me. They went ape, because after that, Culpeper left Moss, and we would never have them together again, and we would have had photos of them together. So that's the way that went down. And we had many weddings there. We had reunions there. It was just a fun place. And we had a lot of companies that came and had dinners with us there. And I loved it. We had everything but the golf course. And it lasted until we had to come out because the public changed. And we left for safety reasons. But I tell you, I've been down the road a little bit. And I went back to the American Legion to help someone get it up and going again. And ended up staying for a little while. And that's when the post was going down and they wanted to try to get it back on its feet. And that post used to be integrated at one time, and people don't know that. It was the oldest in the state and also integrated. And when they began to get officers and stuff of high quality, then they separated. And that's when Post 21 was formed. But it had been an integrated post for many years. Ooh, I can't find my arm. But anyway, we went on to many other things, and I enjoyed myself tremendously. And I never forget so many things that happened to me as a kid in my neighborhood, which I love. Our neighborhood extended from Piedmont Road all the way to Washington Street and almost to the bridge to Kenoi City. And we had fun in the neighborhood. And we had some very elegant people that lived there, and it lay between Bain, Morris, and Lewis Streets. And Lewis Street was taken in, and on Lewis Street there were quite a few families. We had a Dr. Horsham and Mrs. We had the Flagg family. We had Mrs. Broadnax, who had a little club which Pudgy Booker was in, and they were taught to be elegant and manners as ladies. Well, I couldn't go, but I could sit in. Yeah. And my cousin Nokomis, who was my favorite person, was the chaperone over me, and everywhere they went, this lady reminded me the other day, hi, Noki's little cousin. She remembers. And that's been a long time ago. Well, there was, like I said, Mr. Barnes, our favorite English teacher, was on that street. And the Andersons enhanced the street because they built two beautiful new homes on Bradford and Lewis Street. Then you come on down where we live, and we had Mr. Charles Pack, who was a handsome gentleman who went to work every day in a suit, and he would be really, as the kids say, sharp. And he had a lovely wife. They had no children, so she took us as her kids. Everybody in the neighborhood was Miss Baby Sis's kids, and she even named my sister Baby Sis. And Mr. Pack, we don't know where he worked, but he went to work every day in a suit. And then there was another man in the neighborhood who was dressed to kill. He would come in our neighborhood driving this big, long, black limousine, and we'd be screaming. We'd fall out in the grass, and he would park the car and get out in his uniform, and he could wear a hat to the max. And he'd get out that car with the shoes shining, the suit pressed, the shirt, and the gloves. And he'd get out and tip his cap to my mother and them all sitting on the porches and say, "Hey, kids," and smile. And he was always so nice. And he was a good-looking man in that car, in that uniform. And that was the governor's limousine. And he was the chauffeur for many governors, and that was Annette's daddy. And she thought, "Oh, he's just my daddy." We'd be going crazy. And I can tell you with this speech, anything in here, I can talk to somebody about it because we've been together and we've done it. And she was proud of her dad, and so were we. And the neighborhood was really good. And the kids are still friends, which is us, and our kids are friends. And everybody knows everybody. Well, when I was 12, we were Episcopalian. And I told my dad and mom I wanted to be confirmed. And we studied for me to be confirmed. And I had an auntie in Philadelphia who always took care of us and gave us a train ticket to come to see her. And she took us everywhere and bought our clothes for school. So she sent me my confirmation dress. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, I thought. And I remember learning all the things you had to learn to be confirmed. And at 12, I went down the aisle to receive God. The dress was something I never forgot. And all I can say is I remember feeling, I'm not pretty, but this makes me feel beautiful. And I felt like I was getting closer to God, and He would accept me in my brand new dress. And I feel that He did. And many years later, I would say, I wonder if I might ever have a dress like this, but I don't want to get married. But I stayed with St. James Episcopal Church, and we had a very small congregation and very few children. But there was a Mr. and Mrs. Franklin who kept the church going, and we had a lot of people from State College that attended the church. And they held on as long as they possibly could to make the church stay alive, but it just soon could not happen. So it did make a new church, and they had a few congregations, but the strength wasn't there to maintain the church. Okay, we go on down the line, and I finally decided, well, maybe I might get married. Well, I don't know for sure. But I did meet a nice person, and in 1954 we decided to get married. And I can tell you the truth. The dress that my aunt sent me again from Philadelphia was a wedding gown almost like my confirmation dress. And then she arrived on the train to be there for the ceremony. And I never tell you how it feels, except I can say this. I know God, and if that's the closest I could get to Him was to dress up and be seen and feel like I did, I know it's a beautiful feeling. And I never left or forget that feeling. And that's the way I live today. That's my feeling and my way. It was always fun. Now, getting back to my mother. She had a habit of making you be busy and have something to do. So I'm laying around, and she said, you need to go to the M&S for me today and pick up the things I need. So I get on my bike and I go down to see Doc Saw. Well, she needed nut brown powder, Mrs. Walker's hair pomade, and she had to get her Pittsburgh courier. And Doc Saw finally had some stockings of color that we could wear. Yeah, so I'd pick up the items. And she always let me get a treat. And before I could leave, Doc Saw would make my milkshake, or Ruth, a girl that worked there, and I'd get my milkshake. But she had me timed. She knew what time I ought to get back with her items. And so one day, when I was in high school, Mrs. Davis, Elsie Mae Davis, came to a few of us and told us we were going to Carnegie Institute because we had won some art contests. So she took about 7 or 8 of us to Pittsburgh, and we won the contest in Pittsburgh. And it was exciting. And we stayed on Central Avenue, and we didn't know that was a red light district, and we didn't sneak. And we sneaked out the door, and somebody went and got Miss Davis, and she told us, get in them rooms and don't come out. And the street was moving. There was a lot going on the street. And we hadn't seen that much action, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we were there in Pittsburgh for being in the art contest, and several of us are here that was there. They was with us too. I won't call any names, but anyway, I didn't become famous like some of these artists, but we have somebody who came famous from Miss Elsie Davis's class. Well, she took us for a streetcar ride, and we toured the city, and that was exciting to us. And the streetcar was full. And people was just looking at us like we was aliens, and we looked at them same way. Big city, right? So we were riding along, and I saw this lady in a white outfit, a nurse, the way they used to dress, hat, cap, all that. And I kept staring at her. She turned around, she looked at me, and she smiled, but she turned away. And I told Miss Davis, I said, Miss Davis, I know that lady. She said, Chlorine, sit down. Go to your seat. I said, yes, ma'am, but I know that lady. She said, why do you think you know her? I said, because I don't know, but I know her. She said, well, we can't be talking to people in the city. You're not at home. It's not like you're in West Virginia. You can't speak to people in the city. And I thought, okay. So she sat down, but I didn't. I went over to the lady, and I said, hi. She turned around, she said, hi. She said, who are you? I said, who are you? She said, where'd you come from? I said, Charleston, West Virginia. She said, Charleston, West Virginia? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, oh, my dear. Oh, Jesus. Hallelujah. What's your name, baby? She said, no, I'll tell you who you are. You're Chlorine Grigsby Carter, and I'm your first cousin. My name is Mildred Grigsby. And she started crying. The streetcar was crying. Everybody started gathered around us, and we was talking and laughing. And she said, my dad is your Uncle Robert, and your dad's name is Yorty. Aunt Lil is your mom, and we have an Uncle Billy. And my mother was a cowboy, and married a Grigsby. I said, that's what they told me. So that evening, her dad, Robert, came and got us from the Y and took us to my grandmother's house. And they were all there, and all of them went to Garnet, and every Grigsby graduated from Garnet, and they were all there. and the Cowboys too. And we had dinner. And I got to see my grandmother for the first time since I was 8 years old. But I knew there was a feeling when I looked at that woman, I knew her somehow. And we had a wonderful time. And Miss Elsie Davis started talking to my uncles. She said, I'm looking at you, and you look familiar. He said, yeah, I should. I was in school with you at Garnet. So was Billy, so was Yorty, and so was Alma. And she knew all of them. It was a fun time. And I can't believe the little coincidences I've had all my life, because I will ask you who you are. And I usually know who you are, but forget who it is and have to make out and figure out who you are. But I have a feeling that I know you, and I usually do. I was 8. She was the first black baby on the Gerber food label. And she is now 89. Yeah. And we had a cousin on American Idol. He was from Overland, Ohio. And my son told his wife, my cousin's on TV. She said, yeah, right. You always get somebody, you said your mama was making commercials. Now you get your cousin on TV. He said, I'm telling you, come here. It's little Charlie from Oberlin, Ohio. He was on American Idol with Reuben Studdard. Okay? So he comes on, and it's Charlie. He didn't win, but he traveled with Reuben for a whole year. And Reuben came to the Clay Center in ragtime. And they had set it up for me to meet Reuben. And I went over to the Clay Center to meet Reuben and the cast. In the meantime, they was back at I said, make some food, they're going to buy it. Okay, they were back there cooking, because I said, we get some food cooked, because they're going to buy this food. So I go over to see Reuben. When I walked in, he said, hi, Chlorine. They had set it up, and that was it. I met the whole crew. We ate together, we had fun, and I met Reuben Sutter just like that. And he's still in California doing something. We don't know exactly what. But there's always a connection to make me see somebody that I know. And Reuben went on to Charlotte, where my niece was, and they got to meet him in Charlotte, Michelle and Jamera. Yeah. And I met so many people. I really, really have. And I got to wave at Gladys Knight and her one Pip. and Bubba was crazy, and he was waving. And she just had the one Pip, you remember, when she was here? That was it. But I've had a fun life. And through all the things that happened, I always thought in my mind, if you help me, God, to get through this, whatever it is, and let my family make it too, we'll be all right. I promise you, I'll do the right thing always, if I can. And we went on to many things, but it's been a wonderful life, and I never lived anywhere else and never cared to. And I've enjoyed being with my family, and I got an extended family of young ladies and a couple of brothers, and they see to it that I'm okay. They check me out. When my son goes on the road to drive the truck, he tells them to look after me. I can't do nothing. And they've been there for me through all my illnesses and whatever, and they went to school with my children. They were all friends. And that's why I'm saying there's a connection to everything we've ever done. It's a village. That's what I call it. We had a true village. There's a young lady here this evening whose mother was a friend of mine, and we met, and she had her children, I had mine, and I was saying, y'all come on here, let's go. And they was trying to play. And we made acquaintance through a wonderful lady named Dolores Harris, best friend in my life. Everybody thought we were related. We were friends as kids. And she introduced us, and we stayed friends for life. Yeah. And it's been fun. And my children and her children are friends. Barbara Lacey used to have the baddest parties in the world. If you went to a party at Barbara Ann's, it was fun. And you obeyed because she ruled the party. You either act right or you got put out. And we would walk to the parties, and they were on the south side, weren't they, Barbara Ann? And we were on the river. So you had to be cool, else you might land in the river with the help of Barbara Ann. But we had good times. We always did. The women's club would have socials for us. There was always something to do, and we did a lot of walking, the west side to the Charleston, Charleston to the west side, and we walked the boulevard all the time, and it was fun. And there was a skating rink down under the river, and we'd go there and skate, and then there were socials. We had socials sometime on Friday. There'd be a social somewhere. I can't remember Cabell doing much. I don't recall that. But I know Boyd did a lot of things. And we had some kids where we were talking about going to out of places like other schools. Because Charles Day and a girl, Ferguson, used to always be at Boyd's school doing something at our school. And actually, there were a lot of things that went on at Boyd that included music. And that was Miss Mickey. Yeah, she was a school teacher. And then Maudwanza Lane was down at Garnet, and that was the teacher. And the band was terrific. If you weren't a band member, you missed something. But it's been a wonderful life for me. I have no complaints, and I have many friends, and people still looking after me. They know best. And I want to be here a long time, and I celebrate every day. And somebody said, do you tell people your age? I said, yeah, because I'm glad to have it. If I can't tell you, I might not be here. Yeah, and I don't have no reason not to tell you, because somebody knows in this room, more than 2 or 3 people, they know. So I can't get up here and put on some makeup and try to laugh, because they know. Well, I think I've just about told y'all everything I can. But there's one more story. I live on stories, and my great-grandson told me the other day, Granny, you told me that story 3 times already. I said, shut up and listen again. And he looked at me like I was insane. I said, do you remember what I said? He said, not really. That's my boy. Mm-hmm. Now, we've covered a lot of ground. But my mom, there was 2 beauty schools here. Miss Juanita School of Beauty and Miss Thompson. No. The other one was from Cent Street. Yeah, Miss Jackson. But my mom went to Miss Juanita School of Beauty. Well, my mother didn't like to do many things, but she took beauty culture. She only got through pressing, so she needed a head to work on. And so she chose me as the candidate, and I came around and tried to maintain as long as I could. We had a lot of hair at that time. And she would clunk you with the straightening comb. I had a design here, one on my ear, back of my neck. And I mean, she liked to kill me, man. And I said, Mom, do you like doing this? She said, just be quiet and sit still. So she pressed very well. She had that nut brown powder. So if I had to go somewhere special, that's what I covered my wounds with. Well, she got after me for using her powder. So Doc Saul told me, I told him that, he said, where's your little cover? I said, Mom won't let me use the powder, Doc Saul. He gave me a box of powder. And I like to read the paper. He said, I'm going to give you something. He said, I'm going to give you a Pittsburgh Courier, and I want you to keep it for yourself. And he did. And she quit school, thank God. And finally, we decided we're glad she did, because if she had finished, some customer would have hurt my mother. Because she was wicked with that comb. And to this day, I don't want to straighten the comb in my house, because I'm afraid Mama might decide to come back and try something. But she did. She finished the pressing, but she wouldn't take it. She said she wasn't going to stand all day long and fix somebody's hair. But she could press beautifully. But it was rough. But I was always the guinea pig. I had a little sister named Baby, says she got out of everything. I don't know how she did it, but she was smarter than me. Yeah. But I wanted to share some of the things that happened to me. And it was a wonderful time. And I don't have any regrets, because I tried to make the best of everything I could. And if I couldn't do it, didn't do it at all. And I've enjoyed meeting new people who've arrived in the city. I always try to make myself available to help my family if I can in any way. And my son came here, which he is my grandson, but he is my son, with two beautiful boys. And we bonded together, and other grannies too. And we got them up off their feet, and they're doing fine. One of them's a man now, I can't hardly believe it. And the other one will be soon, and they're doing all right. And he's a fine young man with a single dad with two boys. And he maintains, and we tried our best to do our best. And there was one more story I was going to tell y'all, and Mr. Kins will probably tell me, shut up, Chlorine. I said, no. It's your fault I'm here. Anyway, I can't, I wrote it, but I can't use it. And, but it might tell me something. Okay, one evening I was in my chair. I woke up. There was a thing on the TV talking about the silver-haired legislature. So I said, So I set up, found out what it was about. I went down the boulevard and walked in and asked for an application at the senior bureau on the boulevard. She said, well, we're ready to close. I said, well, may I have an application so I can look it over? She gave me one. Next morning before 9, I was on the lot. So I went down and I got the app. And then I went and found out what all it was about. And it's a wonderful organization, been in existence for quite a while, and there's several people here in it, been in it a long time, more than me, and done many things in there himself. So I decided I liked what was said and told me, and I was going to join. I didn't know you had to campaign. So you had to get signatures and campaigns. So this one little great-grandson, I kept looking at him. He said, Granny, what's you looking at me for? I said, nothing. So I went and I got me some poster board. And I found the old belt. And so I was going to make a double sign, one in the front and one in the back. And he saw me trying to put it together. He said, if you make that, Granny, I'm not going to wear it. But now what we did, we had to go out and campaign. And he helped me. Oh, he passed out everything and told him he would talk and tell him what was going on. So we did that. We got all our signatures and everything. All right, I joined this thing. And as I told y'all in the beginning, I never could talk in front of people. That's when I learned how. I don't know how to this day I ended up being pro tem speaker in the beginning. I did the session. And Lord knows it was rough, but I did it. The next session, they had called me to be the speaker. I thought, I know I'm going to quit. A friend of mine said, you're not quitting. You're going to do this, Chlorine. You'll never overcome your fear. I thought, well, what difference does it make? You know, but I did, and I was the speaker. I came out on the health problems, and I've enjoyed it tremendously, and it carried me through and helped me to do that. And a friend of mine gave me a gavel, and every now and then I decided I'm going to use it at home when I'm talking. And I enjoyed it. So anyone that doesn't know about the Silver-Haired Legislature, get the information and think about it. You have to be 60 to join, but it's a terrific organization. And I've had a good time. And I had a little great-grandson who became a page when he first got here, due to thanks to Mr. Kinzer. And he was so beautiful down on that floor, and I'm up in the gallery. I thought, good God, what a feeling. I had a feeling just being there with him. I never thought I'd be up in the chamber. And that feeling never left me. I always had these feelings. They back again. And it was a wonderful time for me. And I got to hold the last session, and we'll be going back in soon, and I'm going to remain. But I'm not going to take an office this time. I know where I am and what, I want to do now. But y'all don't know how happy I am to see everybody and tell you about my extended families. I got 2 or 3 in here. And I'm just so proud of them. And Barbara Ann's a dear friend, and we together. Octavia and Annette calls and says, hi, classmate. Ozzie Roach worked with us at the bank. Hubert was a classmate. Pudgy's my former son, mother-in-law. But she's still the mother-in-law, as far as I can. And Liv is my favorite baby. And there's Patricia Spurlock, who I dearly love. She and my daughter were like twins. They were so close. And Janet Boland, a dear, dear friend. And I can ask any of them to help me with anything, and they will never refuse. And I just want to say it's a joy. Thank you, Mr. Kinzer, for giving me an opportunity that I wouldn't have had otherwise, because nobody was going to ask me to say nothing. And I wish you all a safe trip home this evening. And I didn't think I'd see so many people I care so much about. And thank you for coming. And if you need me for anything, just call me. I'll do my best. Good night. Now these are some of the pictures, and I'm just going to let y'all look at them, and I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to be my real self. Okay, just flick through. Mm-hmm. That's a dear friend. He was at my wedding when I got married, he and his mother. They were Chesapeake people. See, my husband was Chesapeake Cabin Creek. That is Mr. Kinzer's uncle, and he's quite a musician. And I got to meet him. Now that's Biscuit Miller, who was here with the festival the other week or two. And he found me on GPS 10 years back and came to my restaurant. And every time they was in town, they would come to the restaurant. There's Reuben Studdard. See what I mean? He was the nicest young man I ever met. And he was good in ragtime. That was a terrific show. That's when I got the AKAs gave me the Entrepreneurship Black Woman Award. That was my restaurant on Washington Street. It was across from General Hospital. That was from Biscuit Miller, a thing. Now that's some of my Silver-Haired Legislature group who came to our putting in the sign at the hotel on Shrewsbury Street. That's on Washington Street, down by the Rattray Park. That's a lovely friend, Miss Sandy. Helen Leffridge, a classmate. Helen Leffridge Robinson and Sarah Spurlock, a great friend. That's my family in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and my sister. One of our reunions. He brought his whole family who were visiting. They were coming through Charleston. That's a Tyree family, some of them. Mm-hmm. Thank you, baby. That was an artist, which I failed to tell you about. I have a pillar, the group, Mr. Kenz's group, under the interstate, and the young lady was the artist who drew it. And it's across from Kelly's Men's Store. If you ever go through there, you can see it. And that's her mom. There it is. Mm-hmm.
Thank you too, Miss Clem.
You're welcome. Look. Is this off? I hope.
So, I want to thank you guys for being out here, but I'd like to, if you have briefly, before we go to the questions session, I'd like to bring her grandson, Sean Jr., up front. It's something very special to read to her. Because as you've seen, the governor's office gets a lot of work done. And these are long-lasting recognition activities for our students. So, and we know we have someone special to read them to our guests. And as she has said, this young man is very special. And he'll be special for the rest of his life for her and all of us, because he's being recorded reading this.
Whereas Chlorine Carter was born in Charleston, West Virginia, and moved to Pittsburgh. Whereas Chlorine Carter attended McKinley, I cannot speak, but Charles, my bad.
You sit down.
All right. Okay.
Just like your grandma.
All right. Whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter attended McKinley Elementary School in Pittsburgh, and when they moved to Charleston, when she attended Boyd Elementary and Junior High School. And whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter graduated from Garnet High School in 1953, where she was ran for class president in Miss Garnet. And whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter was devoted wife to her husband Herman, a local mother to 3 children, Jovalene, Alexandria, Maurice, and a proud grandmother of 6 grandchildren, 2 step-granddaughters, and 4 great-grandchildren. And whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter is a member of the Levi First Missionary Baptist Church and formerly worked at the School and Richardson Department Store, the Securities Building, West Virginia State Registrar's Office, Brown Elementary as a teacher's assistant, and specialized reading in BBT, and where she retired in 1995 after 23 years. And whereas in 1960, Chlorine Grigsby Carter and her husband Herman operated a canteen for youth and ran the later American Legion Post 57 until it closed. And whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter and their new partner opened Clothes in the Homes Lounge and the Game Lounge at Shawnee Park. Whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter opened a family restaurant on the east named Chlorine's Uptown Eatery, and whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter was a member of the Post 57 Auxiliaries and American Legion and the Conservative Club Auxiliary, Charleston Women's Improvement League, American Cancer Society, and American Lung Association of Charleston. And whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter is currently a member of the Silver-Haired Legislature and has served as a pro tempore speaker and Speaker of the House. And whereas Chlorine Grigsby Carter is a caring, giving person, and her dedication and commitment to her family, friends, community, church, and career has been an outstanding example of us all. Now therefore, I, Jim Justice, Governor of the great state of West Virginia, do hereby bestow upon Chlorine Grigsby Carter a certificate of recognition.
That's my boy. Now, this young man is also the great-grandson of my loving family, Pudgy Booker. And that's his auntie right there. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Then we'll have a brief question and answers, and then we'll close out. Just ask me anything you want.
Did you ever run into the Shrewsbury that Shrewsbury was named after? I mean, Shrewsbury Street was named after? Did you have any connection with that family?
The Shrewsbury family.
I don't know.
Okay.
I
didn't know
know
if they
very
were.
little about the family history.
Okay.
You have a question in the back?
Hello, everyone back here. My name is Jeremy. I'm a visitor in town. I just wanted to ask. I've only been in town for about 4 hours. I saw the chocolate come in and I followed on in. But I just wanted. Is your restaurant still open? Is there somewhere for me to go? Is there somewhere for me to go?
He just came into town. He was asking if your restaurant was still open. He was asking if your restaurant was still open. He just got his town 4 hours. He needed
Chloe, there was one thing you forgot to mention. You were among the first to make TV commercials.
Oh, I forgot I made TV commercials.
You didn't mention that.
I forgot. I did make several TV commercials. And they ran a good while. I never got any money.
Yeah, I think most people have seen pictures of Pittsburgh and like before and after. And I just wondered if at the time that you were talking about when you were there, and it, you know, the steel industry was, you know, the place was just so dirty. I mean, do you remember it that way?
You see, we lived there, and all that action was going on. I was 8 when we left. But now, when we went back, that's when things began to deteriorate. We're starting to, you know, get bad. We saw several boarded up homes and things like that. And where my grandmother had lived, where she still lived, she lived in East Liberty on Conemaugh Street. I'll never forget the address, 8101 Conemaugh Street. It was a fairly nice place. But Frankstown Avenue and those places were beginning to get kind of shambled. It was starting to go down because I was 15 or 14 years old. Yeah.
Yes. What was your favorite job that you had? Because you certainly had a lot of very successful jobs. What was your favorite job?
My favorite job? I really enjoyed working at the bank.
Did you?
I really did.
What did you do with BB&T or One Valley Bank? Sorry.
Yeah, I enjoyed, and when I was young, I used to have to go pay the rent there. And I went down the escalator one day and I said to myself, I'm not Loretta Young, but I'm gonna work here. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Did you ever have any experiences on Charleston streetcars, or were they gone by the time you were young
They
lady?
weren't here when I came along.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't mean to date you.
I'm old now, but not that old.
I'm sorry.
Tell the audience where you grew up at, where the ballpark is.
Oh, our houses were where the ballpark is sitting now. And we had a whole community. And if you went up that ramp at Brook Street, there was 4 little houses left. And one lady named Miss Ann Fields was determined not to leave. And she was in a little yellow house. She was the last house to be torn down. And my grandmother and them had come down here way in the early years when my mom was young, and they lived in that house that whole time they were there. Then we came and lived in the house. There was 3 streets, okay, Lewis, then there was a little alleyway by the building, and then there was Truslow. It went straight through the Morrison Brook, and then you had, what was that, Lewis Street. That's where the community was. And we had 2 markets there. You had several little restaurants, and there was a market called Summers Market, and they catered to the people like Script. I guess I never did it on Jeffrey, but they would let you run a tab for the families in the community, and it was called Summers Market, and it was there for many years.
What type of music did you listen to? The artists?
What type of music?
Well, my mother always listened to music, and she had every kind of music you could get. And at that time, you could turn the radio on, and you could pick up something from Chicago. I can't remember what it was.
WVON?
Huh? Anybody remember?
WVON?
But anyway, she had a record player, and she would order records, and she played music all the time. She liked rhythm and blues, and she just liked music. Now, when I was one time we went to Philly, huh?
That was Symphony Sid from Chicago.
WCFL.
And
Yeah,
you got it
yeah.
all from there.
Yeah, and you could only get it real late at night.
Yeah.
Now, about my grandmother's house, there was a guy, and you know him, Rabbit. His name was Billy Joe Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
Played piano. Little short guy. He used my grandmother's piano to practice the piano because he had to sit on the telephone book. You remember that story they tell about it?
Yeah.
We went to Philadelphia, and my aunt had a boyfriend that worked at a real nice, it was a dinner supper club, and they were taking us downtown. And this sign said, Ivy Joe Hunter, in the round. They had the club with the piano in the round, and it would go around in a circle. Y'all seen them? And I told my auntie, I said, he played at Grandma's house. She said, you know he didn't play at your because it wasn't her mother. It was my daddy's mother. And I said, can we go in and see him? He was practicing. She said, no. I said, why not? And I hollered in the door, can we come in? He said, yes. So we went in, and he just was nice as he could be, and he was playing at that place, and I told him who I was, and he went crazy. Because I was about 15 or so then, and he would practice at my grandmother's house. And that's how he played the piano. He didn't even have a piano at his house. He lived on Conemaugh Street in Pittsburgh.
If there is no more questions, we do have time. But if there's no more questions, as the director of the nonprofit organization, the West Virginia Center for African American Art and Culture, I'd like Ms. Barbara to stand, please. Ms. Barbara, Ms. Chloe, Mr. Henry Battle, and his wife, Ann is here. Mr. Rabbit Jones. These people have been instrumental in shaping the organization and what we have accomplished. I personally want to thank you all for helping me mold the organization to where it is today. You as an audience, Garnet graduates, Charleston residents, those who have left Charleston and came back, those who stay here and make the city what it is. As I say in organizational literature, through the circumstances, you've accomplished everything that you wanted to do. And didn't let the circumstances hinder you from getting what you needed or wanted. We, as a younger generation, and the younger people than me, are blessed because of what you did.
Amen.
And I continually want to thank you for that. And as the younger people see what we are doing as an organization, thanks to what you did, we can't do anything without working from a foundation. To build something, you have to have a foundation first, to start from. And I continually say, and I'll always say, you lay the foundation for what we're doing today. And I continue to stand on your shoulders to get what I get done. And I want to continue to thank you for what you did and what I'm laying a pathway for others to get done. Is because you did it first. The organization will continue doing what we're doing. We will partner with other groups to accomplish other activities, promote our history, promote the city of Charleston and the state of West Virginia, and let others see what we as a state have done, thanks to you. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. We'll have another speaker series beginning the last Thursday of May 2018. You will continually hear from us promoting that. And we'll have some dynamite guests too. Because there are some people who need to share their story with the rest of this world, beginning in West Virginia. But again, thank you, Ms. Chloe.
This is the time we all say and barber shops. Back in the days, listen here, my house and your house, and up in the holler, we got preachers and teachers, yeah, got doctors and lawyers. I said my house and your house, and up in the holler, musicians, yeah, we got hustlers and ballers. Back in the day, on the block, y'all. Here we go. People from all over, from all the places, they helped to build this great state, city and nation. There comes a time when we gotta say thanks to the block. Yeah, back in the day, this is the time when we must say thanks to the block. I said now back in the day, to the people, places and things, to all the memories that the block did bring. Back in the block, in the day, yeah. Come on with me, y'all. Back in the day, to the block, yeah. I said back to the block, yeah. I want to tell you one more time. My house and your house, and up in the hollers, we got preachers and teachers, doctors and lawyers. I said my house, your house, and up in the holler, musicians, yeah, they got hustlers and ballers. People from all over came and claimed their places. They helped to build this great state and city and nation. I said there comes a time when we gotta say thanks to the block, yeah. I said back in the day, back to the block, yeah. Get it to me. Back in the block, Ooh, yeah. I can remember all the good times I used to have. Going to church, to restaurants and shows. Ooh, when Wilson Pickett came to town, and James Brown